Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest to our podcast. Today we are meeting with Michael Gale, who is the Group CEO of Managing Financial Services out in the United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi. Welcome, Michael. It's great to have you with me today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
I'm super excited to jump into your career journey, but giving students an insight. And of course, when I'm working with individuals, often I hear, should we have made those choices when we're young? Is it too late when we're mid-career and we're doing that transition? So I think your insights today, Michael, are not just for the youth. I believe they're for everyone and anyone who's on that career journey. And I'm excited to jump into that. All right. So let's talk about some of your learning outcomes. First one is really interesting. You mentioned individuals should learn from the failure when not wanting to fail. I love that you phrase it that way, because I think oftentimes individuals, regardless of age or stage, they're afraid of not getting it right. And sometimes, in what I've seen in my experience, is the individual won't even try because not getting it right is more daunting than trying and learning. How have you found, in your experience, trying new things, particularly in your career with clients, within your own career, the whole getting comfortable with not getting it right and potentially failing when you don't want to?
Well, I think just picking up on something you said there about feeling comfortable, I guess what I would say is you never want to feel comfortable. In my experience, nothing good ever came out of being in your comfort zone. When you're at a dinner party, when you're meeting people somewhere, when you meet someone for the first time, what people do is they tell stories. People's lives are a collection of stories. You don't pull out your diploma or talk about the last deal or pull out a piece of paperwork. Maybe if you're a successful author, you pull out your book or something. But mostly people tell stories about their lives, who they are, and things that have happened to them. There is no good story anyone's ever told you that started with, I woke up at the regular time, I caught the regular train to my regular job. It was always, I was on a plane and it got diverted. I sat next to this person. I was in a lineup to go to this restaurant and suddenly there was a fire alarm. Or this happened, this happened. Every good story that people tell you, they were outside of their comfort zone when the story occurred. So the first thing is, don't be comfortable, right? I actually believe, and I say this to everybody, every day when you a choice between doing something that's comfortable or something outside of your comfort zone, pick the outside of your comfort zone. And usually to get outside of your comfort zone, you do have to connect with people you don't know, because those are the people that take you out of your comfort zone. So I have a rule that I always talk to a random person every day. Now, sometimes that's the person serving me in a supermarket. Sometimes that's somebody else standing in line, to get a COVID test or something. Sometimes it's, but always talk to a random person every day and stay outside of your comfort zone. Don't seek comfort, because, and it's not just about career. It's about the progression of your life. It comes from being outside of the comfort zone. Easier said than done, of course, but
I think it is. Would you say that some people are tweaked that way to get comfortable being uncomfortable, or is it something a student can learn on their journey of life? Because I think we see
I think you could deliberately learn. I think there are a lot of people, one of the reasons I talk about learning from failure is that I genuinely believe when you fail, you're forced to reassess things and you do learn. I think very few people learn from success. And I've watched many successful people over my career who I knew when they were becoming successful. And then often, they give interviews, they give speeches, they talk about what they did to pull themselves up and be successful. And the story they tell is not really what happened, right? And generally it's hard to learn from success. You do learn from failure because you reevaluate. And, one of the things that, I always make a joke with people and I say, look, I must be one of the most learned people on the planet because I've failed so many times. And failure is scary. I think unfortunately what happens is the first time you fail or something goes really wrong, it can be deeply scarring and you retreat into, and you never try again. I think what happens is some people survive failure and then they go on because, in some ways I was very fortunate in my life that I had a lot of difficult things happen to me early in life. And so then I was less fearful, of other things. And I think I don't think people learn to be outside their comfort zone. I think people don't learn to be comfortable with failure. I think all humans are social, gregarious creatures. We feel very compelled to fit in and be judged by other people. And when we're young, we can't choose the circle of people. There's our family, and there's the people we go to school with or college with. We have very little ability to find our own tribe where we fit in. So we have to fit in with a lot of other people. And so failure has huge social consequences. If you survive, so I don't think people learn this. And I don't, I think I don't think you have to have an innate skill. Some people probably are more tweaked that way than others, but I think anyone can learn to get past failure, take the learning from it, and learn and the way I do it is I always think about in a particular situation, what is the worst thing that could happen? Am I going to have a roof over my head? Will I be able to eat? What is the worst thing that will happen? Will everybody hate me? What is the social approval? If you can imagine the worst thing and have a plan to survive it, then you can take a risk and pick yourself up. I think it's a conscious choice. I acknowledge though it's very, very hard to do. And when you're young, you don't feel like you have the flexibility, and you feel like the choices you make now will last the rest of your life. And then there are some that do, but in general, life goes for a long time, and you can reinvent yourself a fair bit.
I completely agree. I don't want to walk over the ability. It's not just that you're saying get comfortable being uncomfortable. It also sounds like you're talking from a first person perspective. And I think sometimes when we listen to stories of people who have achieved success, they kind of overshadow the challenges. It's almost like we don't want to tell the challenge, because if we tell the challenge, then we're not really celebrating the success. But from the perspective that you're taking us through right now, it almost sounds like you're saying that we need to immerse ourselves in that challenge to enjoy that journey of learning, which then leads us to success. Would you say, Michael, that success is subjective, or is success what young people believe it's supposed to be? Choose the right degree, get the right job, make enough money, so on and so forth.
Well, I think success is just another measure of happiness, right? So, and happiness is very, very objective. And I think very subjective. I mean, people, success is all wrapped up because we are gregarious. Success is mostly social. It's mostly people are insecure. They want to be loved. They want others to think well of them. And most of what drives us is what do other people think of us? Even completely random people we've never met, who might think that we don't look quite right, or might, think we, say something wrong in a social setting. I mean, it is amazing how much we're driven by the opinion of people that we may never even see again, that don't actually matter or have consequence in our life, but we're terrified of their opinion. So success, when people talk about success, they talk about financial success, but they often don't talk about, and thus being able to create a legacy or make sure my family's got generational wealth, or that I can confront and change problems in the world. They imagine being wealthy and people giving them respect and flying in the front of the plane and getting the best seats, or being able to buy the coolest things or go on holiday. They imagine, a lot of the lifestyle things that come with money as a success. When people think about being successful in other, careers, they think about, having an amazing, being an incredibly successful influencer, or an amazingly successful author or broadcaster or actor, or, in creative fields. It's nearly always about the accolades of others. But actually, the thing that really makes you happy in life is when you feel like, wow, I did a good job. And interestingly, most of the time when you feel really satisfied by yourself, it's not actually the things that you did that were just amazing or a huge success. Often it's when you overcame something. You're scared of flying and you learn to do it. You're scared of going on rides at amusement parks. You're scared of public speaking. You're scared of asking somebody out. You're scared of acknowledging your religion, your sexuality, whatever. Often when you overcome a fear, some of the greatest joy in life is doing something that you were too scared to do. Learning to swim, learning to surf because you were scared of the water. It's confronting your fear. So in a weird way, I'm like, when I think about my life, I'm mostly proud of, and mostly I think about the things that I did, where I did falter, where I did fail, where I was too scared to do something, and I overcame it. And then the other thing, of course, is that we all have a lot of shame because we make mistakes, and when we make mistakes, we hurt other people. And I think as humans, we spend a lot of time, we're not very forgiving of ourselves or other humans. We tend to be pretty judgmental. So we find it hard to admit that we don't want to admit to others we made a mistake because a mistake may have hurt other people we care about, we love, it may cause social approbation. So we're so busy defending to others. Oh, I didn't do that. That wasn't my fault. That we can't say, oh my gosh, that was my fault. I made a terrible mistake. I hurt other people. I hurt myself. What can I learn so as to not do it again? And, we have this deflective behavior as humans. We're pretty hard on ourselves.
And it comes back to what you were saying earlier on about getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, and that's where that learning comes. So it's almost, I think it comes with confidence as well in that, hey, you know what? I don't need to get it right. I am going to make mistakes. I am going to learn from this. And success is not a linear path. It's dynamic. It's almost a tango, isn't it? You take a step forward, you take a step back, and you kind of move forward. Let's talk about your idea of an ethical hack to every career. What does that mean when you say there's an ethical hack to every career path?
Well, people, when you're planning out your career, you've got to find a way. And I say it needs to be ethical because there's no point. There's often shortcuts you can take. You can cheat. You can do various things, but then you don't enjoy your success. So you have to be ethical in what you're doing. But there are, like, if you're riding a bicycle up a hill and a truck comes by and you can hang onto the back of it, you can do that. If there are a bunch of other people who have access to opportunities, you can tag along with them. You can find that person. You want to get that job, or you want to make a sale, or you want to meet that incredibly famous person, and you can't meet them. But I bet you can meet somebody associated with them, or who works for them, or works in their building, or delivers flowers to them, or drives their car, or whatever. You can always find a way, often to reach other people or to do things or to achieve things. So what I'm really talking about is a lot of people I think young people often feel like you're supposed to do everything by the rules. And rules are just social conventions that, a bunch of people collectively agreed it would be good to do this. And you've got to understand the difference between the rules that are like, criminal rules, things where you hurt others, and rules that are just sort of for the convenience of society or to keep people in their place. There are a lot of social rules that are about preventing somebody who didn't go to the right school or doesn't look, the same as everyone else, or that wasn't supposed to be there from being there. So, and you see that in movies all the time where someone dresses up as a waiter to get into the fancy party or whatever, and it's sort of romanticized. But I do think, there are a lot of things you can do to hack the system. You don't have to wait and follow all the rules and think objectively, oh, this is the way to do it, that's the way to do it. Mostly you need to connect with other people and opportunity. And, if there's a shortcut, take it, as long as it's ethical. Be really open to looking for the shortcuts and taking advantage of, opportunity.
Take us through your career decision-making process. I mean, we're looking at the adult version of Michael Gale. What was it like if I were to take you back to when you were just about to graduate from high school? Where was your career decision-making at that time?
Well, here's the thing. I never graduated from high school. So I left home when I was young, had a difficult situation. And because I hadn't graduated from high school and I couldn't go to college, I actually took whatever job I could. And they're mostly, laboring type jobs. You shouldn't pay any money. So then I worked out that if I got into sales and business things, you could earn more money. My daughter was born my first child was born when I was 18. My partner was 16. So most of the decisions I made weren't career decisions at all. Now, if you had talked to me at the time, I could have explained to you eloquently how what I was doing was going to shape my future. But mostly my career has, been totally opportunistic. It literally has. I was doing this job because I needed I needed somewhere to live. I needed to pay the bills. I needed food, and I took whatever I could. Over time, what I tried to do in all those positions was connect with, be friendly to people, get to know people, and get people to give me other opportunities. And I took a lot of risk, and I had some terrible, terrible failures because of that. And I had to restart, multiple times to make really much longer term, more conscious decisions. But even then, and I used to think I've got it all wrong. I'm not strategic. I'm not planning my career. I haven't thought it all out. But actually, as it turns out, by being a bit opportunistic and taking opportunity when it's there and not saying, oh, well, I can't do that because that doesn't fit my great life plan or my career, but at this age, I'm supposed to be up to here, or I have this or have that. It's actually worked out all right for me. But I've had a very unconventional career. And ironically, all three of my children, who are all adults, all completed college and are all a lot more conservative than me, and probably less spontaneous and wouldn't take any of the chances that I did. So obviously, in some respects, I'm not sure that is quite right, because obviously I passed on to my children a much more conservative view of the world.
That's really interesting. Okay, let's go with that. If you were to sit down with a 17-year-old or a 22-year-old today, what would your advice be to them while they're beginning that career decision process?
Well, I do think, despite not having gone to college myself, I do think education has become more and more important in the world. I think it is an enabler. And I think, and that's a challenge, because for a lot of people, access to education is not that easy. There are a lot of costs associated with it. And you can end up, for some people, it doesn't actually put them ahead. But I think in general, getting as educated as you can, but that might not be college. It might be other experience. But I think getting education is very, very important, because it is a filter. People do filter people based on, were you able to get educated? Could you sustain yourself? The discipline, it shows the discipline of being educated. But on the other hand, I'd say be careful not to beat yourself up too much if you can't. You know what I mean? But, I would always strive to have, some formal education. But actually, I think what's more important is to learn things, in and outside of the classroom. Be observant. When you go to a place, look around, play a game. You're sitting in a cafe, look at all the other people and make up a game and imagine their lives and what they're doing. Or when you're walking down the street, think, why is that being built like that? Why is that happening? Why do they put the crane there and not there? Be inquisitive. Learn. And don't learn things that you think you're going to need for your career. Learn everything. If you see a newspaper, if you see a magazine, if you see a podcast and you don't understand the subject or it doesn't interest you, consume it anyway. Consume knowledge. Learn. Because the more knowledge you have, the more you see things that other people don't see, the more you make connections and you recognize patterns. You'd have to have a lot of information. The second thing I would say is network like crazy. Don't be friends with the people that are just like you, that went to the school you went to, studied the same things, the people that make you feel comfortable. Go and do something with the people that make you feel awkward. Or the people that you think are silly or shallow, or, go make a lot of connections, because later in life, connections, that's the shortcut. That is the ultimate hack. Somebody gets an opportunity and they think, who do I know? And they say, oh, there was that, what was the name of that woman that I was at college with that was really into that? And she did come from Morocco, and now I have an opportunity in Morocco. Now, she's probably the 1000th best person to do a deal with in Morocco, but I know her. So now why do I know her? Because she made a connection. So people, banking connections, banking your network. As you get older, the most valuable thing there is, because there's so many things happening in life and there's so much variability and chance. You can't be on top of all the probabilities. So you can't make all the good things happen. But when you're in a lull or nothing's happening or there's not a good opportunity, if you know 5 other people, nobody else might have something going on. If you know 500 people or 5,000, 1 or 2 or 3 of them will have something good happen, something opportunistic, something lucky. And if you're connected to them and they know you as being this sort of knowledge, this type of person from this place, then they'll think of you. The more people, so it's like surface area of opportunity, and one of my colleagues I work with taught me to think a lot about surface area of opportunity. And that's what it is like. Just have more surface area of opportunity. And that's learn lots of things, know lots of people. It's actually
Mm.
pretty simple because you're not trying to do all the right things to make your career perfect. You're not trying to create the perfect opportunity. You're trying to be have enough information to see patterns and know enough people that when opportunity comes up, the probability's in your favor. I mean, a coin, probability resets to zero. Every time you toss a coin, 50-50, heads or tail. But if you're tossing 1,000 coins versus two, you're obviously going to get more tails with 1,000 coins. Increase the surface area.
Michael, you talked about networking so perfectly, but one of the challenges I see with professionals at all levels is many times they don't know how to network. They are doing the one thing that you said not to do, and that not just networking with people that are on that path that the individual will deem as the successful way forward. What are your tips for networking, and not just for young people, for professionals across the board?
Look, networking is hard because it requires confidence. And I think when you're young, it is really difficult because you don't have enough to offer other people. Networking is a social exchange, so of value. And so you go to a networking event and everyone thinks, well, you're young, you're looking for a job. They're all there to get business from somebody else or to get a job themselves. So it is tipped unfairly against younger people. Well, not unfairly. It's just, I guess, a natural process. So, but think of networking as you're going to trade. You got to have something to trade. So it's very, very difficult. First of all, to get to the right networking, which is generally why you need a mentor. Any chance you can get a mentor, find one. And people naturally mentor other people. I think it's a little easier for men to get mentors from other men than it is for women to get mentors from other women, right? But to do with a bunch of complex things. But I think in general, find a mentor. And if you say to people, will you be my mentor? Now you got to pick a good one. If you pick somebody to be your mentor, and even if they're not perfect, you can kind of trade up as you go. You'd be surprised if you say to somebody, will you mentor me? You'd be amazed at the number of incredibly successful, well-connected people that kind of like that. They're flattered by it, and they'll take you under their wing, and they will help you, and they'll take you to networking events. And, it's like being an intern or something like that. But the other thing is, if you don't have something to trade, if you go to a networking event, someone meets you and says, oh, what do you do? And they say, oh, maybe, people meet me and they say, maybe you could invest in my company or help me with this connection or whatever. I've got something to trade, but I didn't always. What I used to do early in my career when I was networking, and this is in the days where everyone had a business card, I would get, every time I met somebody, I'd take their business card, I would turn it over and I'd write down what they were looking at. I'd say, oh, why are you at this event? What are you looking for? And this person say, I'm looking for this. And this person say, I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a contractor that can do this. I'm trying to find an access to this. I had nothing to offer. So I would just ask them what they were looking for, write it down and just give them my card. Right. And over time, what would happen is I would get all these cards. I'd go back to my office the next day. I'd flip them over. And it's like one of those games where you spot the cards. Because I'd talk to everyone. I'd find somebody that was looking for this thing and somebody that was looking for the other thing. I would then call each of them and say, so nice to meet you at that networking event. Did you meet Maria? Did you meet Paul? No. Oh, it's funny because they're looking for what you're looking for. So what I was trading, I didn't have anything to trade. I helped everybody else trade what they had to trade at the networking event. Then, of course, they all looked and thought, that's strange. Who's that guy? And they turned my card over, and on the back, I'd written what I was looking for. So, I know it sounds kind of mercenary, but literally networking, like all social things, it's all trading. Every human interaction is some sort of negotiation. It's a transaction. People exchange knowledge, love, affection, money, access. There is no human interaction that's not a transaction. And people kind of have a romantic view of humanity, and we kind of feel like that's bad. It's not bad. That's what humans are. So approach it like a transaction. And literally, that's an extreme example. I had nothing to transact or give. So I help people transact with one another. But think of something you do have to transact with your network and lead with it. Don't be there to get what you need. Be there to help other people. Be there to show people I can do this. If you help people, they'll help you.
Michael, how did you learn to be so optimistic and creative and very innovative in your approaches? Did you have a mentor, or was this just based on the unconventional path that you took and how you made your way forward?
I mean, a lot of it was to do with this sort of survival thing. And this is why I do say putting yourself, there's that old saying that the toughest steel is forged in the hottest fire. And then one of the problems you have as a parent is you don't want to see any young person be forged in the hottest fire. But so it is kind of difficult. But yeah, like that thing of, I do think having adversity and leaning into it and getting comfort, that helped me. But I had some fantastic mentors, really, really good mentors who helped me so much. And that, I would say, the greatest thing for me in my life has been mentors who really, really did cut me into a lot of things. And I try and mentor people whenever I can, because I really feel like that's something that helped me a great deal. Like, I think at every point in my life, I had somebody that I could call, meet with, talk to, and I still do, that I could just call up and say, what do you think about this? And these people gave their time so generously to me. So mentors, I'm a big believer in mentoring, but also learning that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And yeah, just be optimistic, take a chance. And I realize that's not that easy. And I think some of that is kind of probably a bit innate in people. So if it's not innate in you, it's, I don't say it flippantly, like we'll look on the bright side, because it's not always that easy to do. But it is important to try and do so.
Fantastic. Michael, I could go on forever and keep asking you so many more questions, but I'm really conscious of our time. One last one just before we say goodbye. You mentioned a very interesting bit about it can be harder for women to find other female mentors. In your experience, why do you think that is? And what are women not doing that men are doing differently?
I mean, I'm always sensitive to talk about these things, and I'm very reluctant to talk about the experiences of women because I'm not a woman. So I don't want to mansplain something that a woman thinks. My mother was a very high profile and successful woman, and she had a lot of firsts as a very successful female academic. And she taught me a lot. So a lot of my opinions are really recycled opinions of my mother's. But one of the things she did and she's the one that first put me onto this idea, that she found it very hard to have male mentors, because up to a certain point, right? There was a certain point where it was okay. But once she got too competitive with the men, they didn't want to mentor her anymore. Whereas they had a more natural way of competing with younger men because socially they understood the competition. I think men are very competitive with one another when they're peers. So they don't have a lot of peer support, but they can go to older men, and that's a natural thing. My personal opinion is women are much better at cooperating with their peers. They're much more collaborative and they support one another. However, the problem with that is it's not your peers that can help you, and the mentoring. And then, I honestly have opinion that, for some successful women, it's been very, they feel a bit compromised about, the whole mentoring thing, the way that they've been cut out of so many of the loops by men along the way, and people say that's changing, but I kind of feel like I see, gender discrimination, all sorts of it. But I see the classic, thing that feminists have been talking about for a long time. And I was fortunate. I grew up at a time, when I was young, when there was some amazing women, really leading the charge on feminism. And I think a lot of it's changed, but I think a lot hasn't. And I do think that there's a lot of problems in that. I think women traditionally it hasn't been natural to mentor. It's been natural to deal within your peer group of, at a similar age. So I think this thing, lots of women I talk to, when I say about and ask them about mentoring, no one's ever asked them to mentor. They haven't been asked to be a mentor, and they haven't had the opportunity. I think most of them are actually really quite happy to and prepared to. But they're probably, less egotistical than some of the men. So you might have to ask them 3 times.
Do you think that mentors should be charging for their time, or should it be a voluntary sharing of information, or is that a touchy topic?
Look, honestly, in my view, real mentorship, I think the problem I think you can sell advice and consulting. I think the thing with mentorship is, and you can sell coaching and all sorts of things. And in some regards, it's like when you go to see a therapist, you want to pay them and you want to have a professional boundary and you want to know that it's professional. So there's some real advantage to that. I think true mentoring, because it's personal and it transcends, it's a personal relationship. I think it's hard to do unless you feel for people. And, I do some mentoring and I get assigned mentorees because I do some sort of formal through one of the universities. And sometimes you click with people, sometimes you don't. I mean, to be honest, for me, I find it hard to mentor people if I can't think of them like my daughter, like my sons, like my niece, like my nephew. You know what I mean? Like if I can't feel that sort of personal connection, I think it's hard. And I think if I was being paid to mentor, I mean, I wouldn't ask my niece to pay me for advice. So I would feel awkward.
And I think that's an important conversation to kind of open up, because I know that working with students and also working with adults, sometimes they are a little concerned about asking for mentorship because there's the assumption that there has to be an expensive price tag attached to it. But as you said, true mentorship is about sharing experiences. And I agree. I think it is the mentor wanting to be able to share that and not attaching a price tag to it. Thank you, Michael, for being here and for sharing your insights. I know that I've taken a lot of your time. Thank you, Michael. And that brings us right to the end of another incredible conversation. We were speaking with Michael Gale, who is the Group CEO of Managing Financial Services based in the United Arab Emirates. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you at our next Let's Talk Careers with Miss B.